Welcome back to another edition of B4evaKool podcast. My name is Fortyfive, and this evening, man, we got a crew this evening, so I'm looking forward to bringing everybody in. I just came back from New York, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. 3 states in like 5 days. I am ridiculously tired, but as they say, the show must go on. We have some really cool stuff. And, we have MotoGP World Superbike, Moto America is about to kick off in about a little over a month or so. So I think the last round is the first round is 22nd, I believe, of February for World Superbike. So looking forward to that. I want to thank everyone for liking and subscribing. Please continue to do so. Also comment as well. But with no further ado, let's start bringing the gang in. And let's bring in TJ with Two Wheels and Coffee. What's going on, TJ, man? How was your week? I see the Caesar are in second place. A little Patriots are getting cleaned out, man. How you doing up there?
I mean, the snow's melting a little bit. I'm doing good. Just the days are getting longer, we're getting more sunlight, getting excited. We're getting closer to bike season. I'm actually getting in tune with the bikes and, getting hands-on, getting ready, getting some things changed out and I'm just getting excited for the season.
Nice, man. I'm getting excited for you, so I can't wait for that. And we're going to hear more about what you're getting done to the bike and stuff like that, because I'm really excited for you for this year and the amount of riding that you are hoping to do. And I'm hoping to be at Loudon, so I'm looking forward to that as well. But let's keep it moving. I want to bring in Luis Ortega from Dainese. Welcome to the show. I don't even know what we call this, Luis, because some people have commented that, it's just, a bunch of us getting together, hanging out. We would like to think it's a little bit more than that, and we're communicating a little bit of information to the people out there. So maybe with you coming on this evening and maybe in the future, you'll take us a little bit more serious. Well, welcome to the show, man.
I doubt that, but no, thank you for the invite. Thank you for having me on. I've actually watched a few of these, and it's pretty fun. Kind of set up and what the discussion is. So, I'm happy to be invited in to share some good stories and opinions with the other guys on here today.
Nice. And are you looking forward to MotoGP like the rest of us?
I'm looking forward to any motorcycle racing at this point, man.
What is it? RC bike motorbikes?
Anything, man. If I saw two people on scooters or on Zooms racing down the street right now, I'd probably start like watching, because this is the time of year that it's fun. It's slow, but because so many things are going on. But it's like, I just want racing to start again.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I thought it would get easier as time went on. The off season of not being able to, absorb all the racing that happens. But I find it's still kind of hard, man, because normally I try not to buy a motorcycle, so I usually spend a lot of time looking at bikes and talking myself off the ledge. Unfortunately, this year I wasn't able to do that, so I got myself a bike for this year. But we will talk a whole bunch more, man. I want to just bring in one more person here, and last but not least, this guy's come on the show, and he's pretty much taken over. And as he says, he has no opinion. But if you watch all the shows, you realize he has an opinion. Trax Starz, man, welcome back to the show, man.
What's going on? Excited to be back another week, and even more excited for Luis to be on the show. This guy's just incredibly, how can I say, softly opinionated, and it always brings joy, and beautiful conversation, unconfrontational at all, so it's gonna be an epic show. People, get ready, baby.
All right, man. With no further ado, let's do this thing, man, and have some fun. So, fellas, man, welcome to the show. We're doing it a little bit different. I was hoping to be able to read these questions without my spectacles here, but I got to put them on. So let's start with TJ first, man. what in your words, what is the biggest influence, and what is the your passion towards MotoGP, and I mean, since this has been going on?
I was breaking up. Sorry, I was breaking up. Didn't hear anything.
I was saying, what is your first memory of MotoGP, and how did it influence you in the sport?
I gotta say, my first memory is Valentino Rossi. Just how he just all over the sport, like Michael Jordan, and with colors everywhere, and then him just winning, and it just looked really cool. And that was when I was just street riding. But then that's when I got into who's the mountain riders and all that good stuff. But gotta say Valentino Rossi for sure. My first memory of MotoGP. It got me influenced more into bikes.
Nice. How about yourself, Lewis? I think your memories go back to the 500cc.
I remember when they raced on wooden tracks, man. What are you talking about? Look it up, man. They actually did race on wooden tracks back in the day.
Wow.
Actually, my memories go way back, but like the first impactful memories were probably the early 80s when the Americans just kind of took the MotoGP world by storm. Freddie Spencer and all these other guys kind of moved into this space and really left a big footprint on racing, even with this, the inverted knee drag and things like that. Like that was my first time that I really, really started paying attention to motorcycle racing. We always watched it as a kid, but when the Americans really took some foothold and started winning championships, that's when I started paying more attention. So like late 70s, early 80s.
Wow. I have to say I've only been watching for 12 years, but I've gone back to as far as I can on the videos on MotoGP. So I did get to watch some of those 500cc 250 races and stuff like that. Track Starz, how about yourself, man? What was your first memory?
My first memory, I go back to when the Stone Ages, when they were actually, not on wooden tracks, but on literally rocks, and it wasn't called dirt racing as of yet. Nah, yo, Lewis is about 48 years old, you know what I'm saying? Like, he acts like he's like
little
78,
higher.
you know what I mean? But it's all right. I saw the first time I seen racing was like my boy TJ said. That's why me and TJ get along. Valentino Rossi was the first influence of racing, and I would say in Moto America was I would say Josh Hayes and Josh Herron. I started really watching racing in like 2001, I want to say, or maybe 2000. And then I finally got a motorcycle in 2008. So I'm a late guy to the motorcycle scene as a participator, but as a what they call as a fan, just watching. It's been a while.
Nice. Now, and I'll put these questions to all three of you guys as well. And I think I know where you and TJ gonna go, but who do you feel is the greatest MotoGP rider of all times?
I mean, I'm a late bloomer in the game. Like Lou was saying, he's going way back. But I gotta say Rossi. I mean, what he was able to do on different manufacturers, and still able to prove that he can compete, and just the shows that he put on winning, it was just very entertaining. I gotta say he's the best.
Trax. Lewis, how about you?
I think we're gonna go probably 4 for 4 here, but I mean Rossi is the Michael Jordan of motorcycle racing. There were great racers and great championships before him. Like McDouhan was a great champion and great adversary, but for his time and for what he did across different categories, starting on one different bike, type, going to a different bike type, going to a third different bike type, moving from one manufacturer to another, everything that he accomplished, and really just more than anything, the visibility he brought to the sport. It makes a huge difference. I mean, you go anywhere throughout the world where motorcycle racing or motorcycle culture is big, and he's still the guy that everybody looks to. He hasn't been on a bike in a competitive nature in several years now. And you go to any of these countries, and trust me, man, they still rock Rossi gear. They still rock Rossi helmets. They still come out with yellow flags. Like, it's crazy. You know, it's something that I don't think we'll see again. We'll see great champions again, but there's only one Michael Jordan. There's only one Tiger Woods. There's only one Valentino Rossi.
And Trax Stars, do you think that Agostini lose a little bit, like, you know, Will Chamberlain, Bill Russell for us in this as the Celtics, where, you know, 11 championships, but, you know, we mentioned the 6 that Jordan has and stuff like that. And we don't mention Robert Horry, who got, you know, 7 rings, but, you know, that's a different story. So, you know, how does that, is it just because of the era that Rossi was in and how he, transfer the sport, or are we just not going far in the history books?
No. I think when you talk about Giacomo Agostini, I mean, they both have the brand in common. And I think also the brand kind of chooses certain individuals to represent them. And when we see Agostini's personality and his will to win, this man still, I met him, and he still has that charisma, competitiveness, to still be the best, and he still feels he's the best. And it's the similar characteristics that Rossi has and still possesses. That he has been influential throughout generations, not just in his era. So that's what makes the difference. That's what makes these individuals the GOATs, or one of the GOATs, you know. And their influence transcends outside of the motorcycle industry. For example, Valentino Rossi now has even influenced people like Lewis Hamilton, who loves the fluo yellow color, and this color that we all have representation of Rossi is now in so many sports, even in football now. The fluo yellow is so influential, and Rossi's not going nowhere. I don't think. I know where you want to go with it. I don't think Marquez will ever be Rossi, even if he wins 3 more championships. I don't think he will ever have the influence that Rossi has had.
Okay.
Yeah, Marquez is definitely going to be Rossi's LeBron James. Even if he has better stats, at the end of the day, when you ask who's the greatest, people are still going to say Rossi.
Okay. And now, since we're bringing up Rossi and Marquez, which was a bigger deal? Rossi leaving Honda and going to Yamaha, or Marquez leaving Honda and going to Ducati?
Oh.
Go ahead, TJ.
I mean,
you know,
I mean, sponsorships, I don't know how big they were back then, but sponsorships played a big deal now. The loyalty that Marc Marquez and what he did for Honda, I mean, just staying with one manufacturer for as long as he did, I don't know. I mean, I think that hurt probably Honda more. I mean, I mean, that's probably their second gut punch, you know. I mean, Rossi did it as well. It's just, I think it got to be, it's tough, man. It's tough. I got to say Mark, just because the impact that he had on Honda and what he could have done if he stayed with them.
I guess I should say, who cried more, with the fans, Honda fans, when Rossi left or when Marquez left?
Ooh.
But, you know, what are your thoughts, Lewis?
I don't know. That's a tough one, man. I think I think the tougher move really is Marquez leaving Honda. Even though Honda is right now is a shitbox, it's not a great competitive bike. You know, if you think about where Rossi left, he left to a non-competitive bike. Marquez left to a somewhat competitive bike. It wasn't a factory bike, but it was at least still a competitive bike. I think Rossi had a little bit of a bigger hill to climb when he left than Mark had. Rossi left a really good bike for a company that had an okay bike that needed to get fixed, and they found a way to fix it. Mark left what was a really good bike, became a shit box, and then got on another really good bike. So he don't have as big a hill to climb to make that bike work.
Right. And,
So,
and if memory serves correct, not to cut you off,
yep.
Rossi won a championship in Honda and then left too.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Mark left a giant repair bill at Honda and was like, "You guys take care of that. I'm out. I'm not paying for that." But again, it's not his fault, because if you looked at the last year, he was on the Honda. He was the only guy that was really competitive on the Honda. You know, he made up for almost all their points. The loser in both scenarios was Honda both times. That's the best way I could put it. That's the only real loser. Everybody did win. Yamaha won getting Rossi. Ducati did win in a way getting Mark, because that's a big get to get a multi-time world champion to come join your squad, and not even on the factory bike, on the satellite bike. But in both scenarios, the team that lost was Honda.
Track Starz.
Man, yeah, this doesn't happen too often where me and Louis are on the same page, my brother. Never. This is hey, I feel very awkward right now. But seriously, I think Honda took the loss both times. And I think Rossi had the biggest challenge in both situations. I don't think Rossi ever left, never left to continue winning. When Rossi moved, it was always for a challenge. Very similar to how Michael Jordan left the sport. He left for baseball to find a challenge, something to inspire him to compete in. Never for the easier step to continue winning. And I think Mark chose to go to Ducati specifically, even send his little brother ahead as the test dummy for the vehicle, and wait for the feedback. Is it worth going over there? Rossi, when he made a move, it was, I want to see if I can win there too. And he would go not knowing what the bike was or what was the challenge, but he would be up for it. Leaves Yamaha, goes to Ducati, not knowing what's over there, waiting for the challenge and see if he could win over there, or at least make it better. Right. I don't think he always thinks he's going to win a championship, but somehow the guy just evolves every time. And I think that's the difference between the two. And I 100% agree that at the end of the day, Honda has taken two big blows. But somehow these two individuals, speaking of Marc Marquez and Valentino Rossi, have figured out ways to continue to evolve and build themselves up bigger than they were prior.
Right. I agree that Rossi went down with the ship in a sense that he wasn't happy with Honda and he walked away not knowing the situation, and no one thought that the Yamaha was back in 2004 when he went, or even to win the championship the next year on the bike. Where it's kind of expected that Mark got a great bike and you know, any one of 7 riders could win the championship on that bike, and so it is for him. For Mark, it's more of a come up than Rossi, where it's the unknown. And I think the beef with Rossi and Honda, we could still see it today, where Rossi still wants a bike and Honda is like, you ain't getting that bike, bro.
Can I say one more thing, yo? And this might be a little. I think it's also too early to determine who has the worst effect on the, because Marquez isn't guaranteed the championship next year. The only way we know what's gonna happen is when he wins. What type of effect would it have on Honda? What type of effect would it have on Ducati? And I actually think if he doesn't win on Ducati, I anticipate him going back to Honda.
Okay.
You can write that down. So,
TJ, what do you think about that?
What Trax says?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think Mark might win it this year. I mean, I'm rooting for Jorge Martin. I've always been the underdog guy. I know Jorge Martin's on a different manufacturer. It's gonna be a tough road. But Mark Marquez he has some tricks up his sleeve. He's setting something up. He's got the where he want to be right now. And the one thing that he was always doing in practice was following Pecco. And I don't know, that little tension that they had, I just wonder what's going to happen this year, but it's going to be interesting. I think he's going to have the upper hand for some reason. So I don't think he'll go back to Honda, though. I don't think that would happen. I think those ties are done. Also, that he had the Red Bull sponsorship. So, I mean, it's I don't know. I don't think that would happen.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Louis?
I mean, I think Mark giving up the Red Bull sponsorship, first and foremost, if anybody knows what that sponsorship is like, that's not small money. That's big money.
No. Yeah.
So if you're going to give up that kind of money to take a ride, you're fully invested in that bike, in that team, and in trying to win on that package. I do think that going to the factory bike will give Mark at least that extra 2 or 3%. Because if you looked at any practice, like TJ was saying, Mark was not that far off, and you can always tell that the difference between the two bikes was the acceleration out of the corners. That was the only difference. Anytime that he was following Pecco or he was following Bastianini or even following Martin, the pop that the new 2024 bike had out of the corners versus the 2023 bike was the only thing that kept Mark from being able to be a little more competitive. So I think on a level playing field, Mark is not any less talented than any top rider. And I know that Pecco's won the last 2 championships or 2 out of the last 3 championships.
3, yeah.
But, cream always rises to the top. Bike for bike, those 2 guys are going to be battling all the time. Jorge Martin is going to be watching them from a long distance away on that Aprilia.
I knew it.
I've told Track Stars that number 1 plate is going to look really good in 7th place most weekends.
Yeah.
Because as talented as he is, unfortunately, we'll talk about it a little bit future. The technology of the bikes is mitigating the talent of the riders. Is not helping the talent of the riders.
Yeah. Okay. Let me throw my 2 cents in there. Yeah, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that somebody else is going to win it than Mark. I do think that he showed his skills last year, and you can listen to the tapes. I still say I'm not a fan of Mark Marquez, but the man can ride, and what he did on the bike last year in 1 year. And then also, I mean, even this past weekend with him on the new V2, Ducati must have sold another 1,000 bikes. You know what I'm saying? Because he's plastered all over social media on that bike right now, Mark Marquez. So I think, Morbidelli may have a chance because he's on the same bike for the 2nd year, and he was kind of up front but wasn't consistently. Gian Antonio, he's on a 25 bike. Those guys may have a chance, but the only person that really has a chance to stop Mark Marquez from winning is Pecco. And Pecco has to make fewer mistakes, to be able to do that as well. And there's something that comes with age that you have to seize the moment, whatever the Latin phrase is. Yeah, and so and I think Marquez is there. Not to say, I mean, Pecco's in good hands because he got Valentino Rossi for a mentor, so he's definitely in really good hands, like Kobe and Jordan. But still,
let me tell you, man. You see, you see what Pecco's wearing? I haven't seen. Has anyone seen? Let me start. Let me backtrack. Let me start over. Pecco's not a rider who talks much. He lets his riding talk for him. But he's made a loud statement with this white suit that he's wearing. You know what? You know, I don't know. Lewis will tell you better than me. When riders were kind of shedding away their sponsors, they would wear all white suits or all black suits with no sponsorship on them, saying kind of like that, I'm riding for myself. And I believe that this white suit that he's been wearing is that message to Ducati and the rest of racing, because Ducati went all in with this Marc Marquez and has completely put him to the side. Like you said, there's one rider on Ducati right now all over social media. And last season or a couple months ago, it was Pecco. So I think this is Lewis. You you know the history more than me. Do you think I'm right or somewhere on why this white suit? We've never seen a white suit in MotoGP since Ben Stees, I think, or something. I don't know.
Right?
He wants to try to prove how long he can keep it clean before he crashes again. I don't know. But Mark's wearing a red suit so to me that means he's coming for blood.
Yeah, I agree.
He's got red in his eyes. When you pull red in front of a bull, what happens? It charges.
Yeah.
I think Mark knows that his career is coming to a close soon. He can't afford too many more injuries. And realistically, I don't think within the next 3 years we'll see Mark continue to ride. He's not going to stick around forever like a jilted lover trying to meet their quota to get their payday. If he doesn't do it in the next couple of years, I see him hanging it up. He's about to get married. I'm sure he's going to want kids soon. And he's got more money than he'll ever need money again.
No, I agree.
So I think he's got 2 years, 3 years to prove a point, to try to get those extra 1 or 2 championships. And trust me, man, I really think Mark is going to not push, because I think he's a little smarter. I think he's had enough injuries to teach him that pushing the wrong way and pushing the right way are two different things. But it'll make for a really friendly, competitive Ducati box. I'm sure they'll get along great.
I don't think they're gonna get along that great.
But who about that white suit? I think I heard Pecco say that he was wearing a white suit in remembrance of a rider way back when who used to wear a white suit in practice. That's what I thought it was. Okay. I don't know who that rider was, but yeah.
Real quick, as far as social media goes, the reason you don't see Pecco Bagnaia is because he has less than 2 million followers compared to Marc Marquez's 7+ million followers. That's why you don't see Pecco nowhere, man.
Dang.
You actually have to get followed by people that repost your shit.
Not being fired. So let me ask this, and we'll move on to some other things. Up to this point, do you believe Marquez has bought into Ducati culture like 120%? I'll share. Jorge Lorenzo is a good example who he struggled with the culture, and I think his first year was probably a little bit miserable, or maybe he would say they didn't listen to him, and once they did, everything was beautiful. Do you think Marquez is definitely drinking the Kool-Aid?
Definitely, for sure. I mean, the Gresini team definitely livened it up with his brother already being there, him already just jumping into Ducati that way. And just for him having, I don't want to say it's not a perfect season, but compared to the season before on Honda, with him having almost, I think, 18 DNFs or something close to that, for him to finish most of the races this past year, I mean, it just must be a breeze. And to get a factory seat, he's definitely bought in. He gave up the Red Bull. He's definitely bought it.
What are your thoughts, Lewis?
No, he definitely bought in. I mean, the difference between his move and Lorenzo's move is Lorenzo moved laterally directly into the factory team. So he expected certain things. Marquez actually took a pay cut and moved to a satellite team, understanding that there's budget restrictions to that team. He actually probably brought more money to that team than that team has actually ever seen. I'm sure before last season, Grassini sold like 8 shirts. They probably sold more shirts last year than they've sold in their life.
Now we see bikes with their colors.
Yeah, when you see bikes in those colors, like blue doesn't exist hardly in bikes. But I think he took a different path. He knew it was going to be a little bit of a longer road and maybe even had to prove himself, which is crazy for a multi-time champion. But he did the right thing. He followed the path. I mean, he left all his old sponsorships, not just Red Bull, but even, he was an ambassador for Honda. Now he's an ambassador for Audi that's owned by the same group that owns Ducati. So the guy knows how to tie everything in, and he's all on board, man.
Mr. Track Stars.
I continue this wave of agreeing with Luis. I think Lorenzo's path to Ducati was the perfect one. Kind of very similar to Rossi's. They went straight to the factory team, but it wasn't that Lorenzo didn't drink the Kool-Aid with the fans. No, Lorenzo wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid with the Ducati staff, which was confrontational. And Lorenzo is that confrontational rider. He always been. He's never an apologetic person. He says what he thinks, and usually what he thinks is right because he's a champion. And he proved that by telling Ducati what he needed. And once they got fed up of hearing him, they said, give him everything. Let's see what he does. And he started winning on the bike. The relationship wouldn't last because one thing you cannot do with Ducati is talk bad about the bike. End of story. Marquez is a much smarter, much more technical person. Even when he rides on a risk, but it's with a purpose. Everything he does has an intention behind it. Him knowing what's gonna happen. Even when he crashes, he'll get that elbow down and will pick the bike up and continue. And that's exactly what he did with going to Grassini. He knew there was a risk he would not win a championship on there, but he would get that elbow down and pick the bike back up and end up on the factory team. And that's the difference between Lorenzo and Mark. And it's been profitable for him. And to the point where he could even risk putting Red Bull to the side, because we know Red Bull is not far behind. They are waiting and given any opportunity to get back with a three-headed dragon, a headed dragon like Marc Marquez, they'll get right back behind him and go wherever he goes next. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay, man. I was gonna add, but I think we'll keep it moving. Which team do you believe is going to struggle the most this season? And I guess we can take the 6 Ducati bikes out of the equation. Yamaha, KTM, Honda, Aprilia. Who's gonna be looking for a lifeboat?
I mean, I still think it's gonna be Honda. I mean, I don't think they just figure it out in one go round, after losing Marc Marquez. Even though when they had him, they were still having tough times. But yeah, I think it'll be Honda. They still got a lot to prove and a lot to fix. They're just behind the 8 ball for sure. I just don't know what else to add on that, but I just think they're just gonna have a struggle, another struggling year. Will at least be the team that will be the least in the points again.
Okay. Louis, you concur?
No, I'm going to say it's going to be KTM because they're not going to have any money to put gas in their bikes. And it's really hard to complete a race if you can't fill up the gas tank. I think their financial struggles, even though they say are not going to show on the field, I think their financial struggles are going to show on the field, man. I think they're not going to develop anything new. They're not going to have the money to invest. I mean, they're trying to figure out right now how to. Again, I'm the businessman in this group, so I was looking at the numbers. I think they're going to be struggling to try to bridge this $3 billion issue that they have. And, going racing is not a cheap endeavor.
Right.
And I just, I don't see them progressing much further, to be honest with you, which is kind of sad. I mean, there's a couple of riders that I know that are already trying to find ways out of their contract. Other manufacturers are trying to find their ways into the series. In the event KTM can't stay in the series. So it's really hard to race when you have that much turmoil around your manufacturer, around your team. All the riders feel unsteady, unsure of what their future is going to be. Like that's not the way you want to go racing, man.
Right. So do you think that it's like, when the parents are struggling and they don't want the kids to know that there's a problem, even though, they don't have any heat or anything like that, is the kind of deal with KTM. They're telling everybody everything is fine. We're good. We're going racing. And, they got people, leaving out the back door.
Yeah, that's the problem. When your parents don't have the money to buy you the right toy, it's not like it's on the news. Right. Like this is public knowledge. The company's struggling. They're going into, they're trying to rearrange their debt. They're laying off people. They're closing factories. They're doing this. They're doing that's a horrible situation to be in for the people at KTM. But if you work for them, more so if you race for them, like how does that make you feel? Like, yeah, there's money. Obviously, there's sponsorship that comes in to keep the team afloat, but don't expect a lot of new parts. Don't expect a lot of new innovation. They're not going to be investing a ton of money. Like they're going to have enough stuff to get through the season. But, and next year, or the following year when the new regulations come in, are they even going to be ready for that? Because they're not going to be investing money in R&D to make sure that the bike's ready when the new regulations come in.
Right. So is this and I'll put this to all you guys. Is this a case where, KTM should do like the Japanese, like Suzuki did, and just say, hey, we can't afford it, guys. We got to go and just close down shop versus, stringing people along?
I mean, I think they're doing the right thing. They're getting help along the way. There's people purchasing shares and stuff like that. Lewis Hamilton's involved, and I think they gave themselves a chance. They're going by the word of mouth. I agree with Lou said, but I'm just, I guess, agreeing to what they're saying to us. 2025 racing season will be fine. Obviously they won't be putting that much money into it, but we just hope they don't crash as much because then that's when downfall will probably happen.
So you don't want to grow up, TJ. You want to be a Toys R Us kid forever, huh? What are your thoughts, Track Stars?
Man, I think they're doing the right thing. I think, listen, KTM's a powerhouse. I think whatever they're experiencing right now through the side purchase of the MV Agusta, I think this is a way to shed some of the things that they have. When you eat too much and your stomach starts hurting and you're like, yo, I'm about to throw up, but you're trying to hold it, because you don't want to throw up in mom and dad's car in the back of that because they're going to kill you. I think this is the situation with KTM, and they have to announce it because just in case they do, they ate too much. But I think they're gonna. There's no way KTM disappears. And I think MotoGP is an important sell for racing is an important sell, especially for motorcycles. And it's no difference from F1. I think they're going to have a hard time racing next year. And it's not because of money. I think it's going to be more of how this affects the riders of not knowing what's coming next year. And maybe the young guys like Bender and what's my guy's name? And Pedro Acosta, because they're young, they know they're gonna. But people like the older guys that's gonna be in Tech 3, they're gonna be going crazy.
Jack got
And
out just
especially one of our biggest head cases in racing, Vinales. This guy does not ride unless it's the perfect scenario. And for him to be dealing with all this drama, they're gonna struggle. But we're forgetting about a team that completely had a revamp, and that's from Mac. They're going
right.
from the Ducati to the Yamaha, and even if they come with some amazing upgrades next year, I think they're good. That's gonna be the biggest challenge. I think Luca Marini, and
Mir.
and Mir, they're gonna have a way better season next year. Way better.
Pramac.
I think they'll have not they're not gonna destroy Pramac, but they will not be consistently 22 and 23 on the track, you know?
Well, in the end of last year, Honda was doing, coming close down to the teens, man. So, but go ahead.
No, I agree with him. I agree with Track Stars. I think Honda is due for a little bit of a turnaround. I don't think it's going to be a major improvement, but I see them inching their way up into the teens, maybe even a break in a few top tens. I mean, Zarco had a few great moments this past year,
Yes.
and he's really been the guy that more than anybody else is the canary in the coal mine. He's testing more parts than anybody else. He's putting in more work than anybody else. And I think Honda will do okay. I think Yamaha will do better because Quartararo is a quality rider. He's just not on a bike that can win right now, whether it's mile per hour or whether it's this or that. Like, it just doesn't have the top speed, and you can't make up for top speed on every single track. There's a couple of tracks where Quartararo shined there. He was actually in the fight, at least in the top 7. So those are little things that can come over. I mean, Honda still has the longest road. Aprilia is kind of the same deal. They have a good bike and they're good on certain tracks. They have a lot of top speed. I think by having an entirely new roster of riders on their factory bike will give them a lot better of a gauge of how good the bike is. They're bringing in Bastianini and they're bringing in Martin. So you're bringing in 2 guys that are winners that have won multiple races. One guy's won a championship or has been in the title hunt for a championship several years in a row. I think Aprilia made the best moves. I still think KTM, just with this cloud over them, is really going to be the one that struggles because riders race on mental strength. And if anything you put on top of a rider, especially a rider like Vinales, any kind of pressure you put on that guy, like, he folds fast, man. I hate to say it, but it does. Unless the bike is absolutely perfect, and I've talked to Trackstar about it, unless the bike is absolutely perfect, the sun is in the right angle, the humidity is exact, he's unstoppable. If the rear valve stem is a quarter of a turn too loose, the bike's unrideable. This piece of shit, I quit. I don't want to ride. Like, that's his mentality, man. That's why he's been on so many different bikes in so many few seasons. Like, teams get tired of his prima donna.
But he's won on every bike he's been on.
I mean, at once a day, every broken clock is right. Well, also, if you can win on every bike you on, then why doesn't the team keep you? Because they're like, that one win in 2 seasons ain't worth it to deal with your bullshit.
Well, I mean, I would say I think in Aprilia's case, I think Aprilia screwed the pooch on that one with him more than he screwed the pooch. But I think the type of person he is, he could not, get that red mist out of his eyes to realize I probably should stay with Aprilia. And now, especially where KTM is in trouble, I think it's one of those. This is the one time he probably should have let things go and just say, "Hey, all right, you guys made a mistake. Don't do it again," and stay with Aprilia. But the beautiful thing about the season about to start is that we'll get to see. Let's talk about the rookies before we get into World Superbike. Who do you guys think is the best candidate to win Rookie of the Year? Who's going to struggle the most? I mean, they're all coming into MotoGP. I guess Furman Alligator probably has the best bike out of the 3 bikes. So who do you think will struggle the most out of those 3 guys?
I think I can never get his name right. Chantra.
Samcat Chantra.
Yeah. I think he'll probably
I'm
Hopefully. I mean, I think he'll struggle the most. I think Iagora will have a solid season. I think he'll probably do the best out of all the rookies. I'm rooting for him to win the Rookie of the Year.
Okay.
Aldeguer, for him being on a Ducati, I think he has the best advantage. The bike is just fully dialed in, pretty much ready to ride, with any rider. So I just know his tendencies before the season started. I don't know if it's because he chose to jump on Ducati before the season.
He turned it.
Season that affected his season while riding because he was very inconsistent last year. So hopefully he can have a better season. But I think Iagora will have a better turnout.
Right. Was Furman trying to party like Johnny Manziel a little bit too much last year and not riding?
I don't know what he was doing, man. He's just getting penalties and just not consistent at all. Not a good representation or how you want to go into a MotoGP season, I think.
What are your thoughts, Lewis?
Chantra is definitely going to have the worst season because he's going on a Honda.
That's a fact.
I hate to say it, but at the end of the day, the bike, unfortunately, now makes such a big difference. And when you go directly to Honda, you're not going to have an easy time at it. Aldeguer will have the easiest time or the close to easiest time because he's jumping onto a bike and onto a team that's been with the same manufacturer, has a great cohesion. I mean, Marquez just left that seat, so he's got a nice warm seat for him to take on a competitive bike, on a competitive team. I think there's going to be maybe a little bit more pressure on him because of that, because when you step into a situation like that, there's expectations of you, but I think he'll probably have, if anything, the most consistent year. And Agura, going to Trackhouse, going to Aprilia, I think he'll have a good year. It's really going to come down to those two, but I think Furman is probably going to be the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think so too. I mean, I think he has the most. He can screw it up the most. Yeah. Right. He can out of all three of them, he's the one that can piss it away. Yep. The other two, they might say the bike ain't ready, but he got a bike that's ready, and hopefully his mentality is of one that's hungry and taking this opportunity and run with it. But I do feel, and I even we had talked about this on the show last year. If Ducati was having second thoughts, like did we choose the right guy even halfway through the season? Because realistically, he almost had to scramble to kind of save face with points. And he wasn't in the championship running, and he should have been.
I think that was part of them signing him so early in the season. Is when you get a contract that early in the season, like how much effort do you want to put into getting hurt this year, knowing you got a big fat check next year?
Right.
And it's not even in the same series. Like it's in the Premier Series. So it's like, look, man, I'm playing AAA ball. I got a contract to play with the Lakers next year. I'm not trying to blow out my knee for $1,000 a game when next year I'm going to be making, $16,000 a game or whatever. So right. I think that was they wanted to jump on him early, and I think they jumped on him too early, and they just kind of ruined his drive to compete in the Moto2 championship.
And do you think that he was holding a grudge because Rossi wanted him, but they didn't want to let him out of his contract? Well, they wanted a lot of money to let him out of his contract, so he just kind of rode half-assed last season.
I mean, sometimes that's what you got to do because it's not the first time that's happened. Think of how many riders KTM has fucked with their multi-year contracts where we get you on a 125 contract, but this 125 contract is for 10 years. And for 10 years, we dictate where you can go. So right. If we decide that you're going to stay in Moto3 for 5 years, even if you can have 6 other teams in Moto2 looking for you, oh, no, you're in the contract. You can't go to Moto2. And when you go to Moto2, you have to go to their team. When you go to MotoGP, you go. So again, sometimes these contracts are not in the benefit of the riders. So if they have to wait to get an out, some of them are willing to do it because the next contract will definitely be better than the first contract.
Any thoughts, track stars or TJ?
I think I think the same. I mean, obviously, Ducati's does magic for the youth. When you look at Nico Bulliger, you know, you come to the great Ducati, and all of a sudden, you look like a champion. I'm just saying, but but it's gonna be close with Iagura. Um, I think that he stepped it up so much. And it got him the seat. I told you, I've said it many times. I really wish, and I know Louis gonna say something about this, but I really wanted Joe Roberts up in MotoGP or my boy Connect, but it didn't happen. And we know what we did. We got the cards that we dealt, and I think deserving. Gura is gonna be a force to be reckoned with. He's on a new team, but he's on a known bike, and Aprilia really has something going for them. I hope that Trackhouse um, really puts their best foot forward. Going into this, because we don't want them to be a team that's here today, gone tomorrow, and it could happen. And we could possibly lose Trackhouse, and I'm not even gonna say because I don't want it to happen, but we know what other team. Um, and that'll be 4 bikes off the grid, I believe. Yeah, more.
More.
That'll
6.
be 6. Yeah,
But
it's scary.
Yeah, I don't. From hearing Lewis talk earlier, it sounds like there might be other people willing to step in, chomping at the bit. So, sometimes shakeup is a good thing.
BMW, baby. Look at Lewis.
Speaking of BMW, let's get right into World Superbike. Now, I saw a thing on social media that says Keenan believes that if Top Rock goes to MotoGP, he should get a factory seat and not come in on a satellite or maybe a new team. Meaning, if BMW decides to go into MotoGP, is what I'm assuming. Is he trying to stunt like Marc Marquez, saying I'm not going to sign for another satellite team?
I don't know what he's thinking. I mean, it ain't like that, I mean, like, I understand like his capabilities. He might have to prove 1 more year, 2 more years that he can win on that same bike or something like that. But to just jump in and for all the riders who's trying to fight for contract, get better seats, to him to just come and steal a factory seat, that would be a huge blow. I don't think that will work out. I don't agree to that at all.
Okay. Louis, what are your thoughts?
I think they got some good drugs in Turkey, man. Like that's there has not been the last semi-successful rider to make the jump from World Superbike to MotoGP, I guess, was Ben Spies.
Cal Crutchlow?
Nah, dude. I mean, a rider that actually won.
He won
more often than not. He left a lot of repair bills.
Yeah, didn't he win a couple, or was on the podium? I think
he was on the podium a bunch of times, but I think he only won like one race. Did he ever win a race?
I don't think I don't think he won. I think he finished.
I mean, Ben Spies did win races, and he was with Yamaha, and he was also with Ducati, and until he was injured. Right. But like the jump from World Superbike to MotoGP, everybody thinks is an easy transition because they're bikes, and it's not. It's a completely different culture. If you look at like the World Superbike paddock to the MotoGP paddock, it's like comparing, an office, a well-defined office space to like racing out in the backyard. You know what I mean? Like it's 2 different cultures, and you can't just jump. As good as you are in the culture you're in, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should jump directly to a factory bike. And there's only so many factory seats. And if I had an option as somebody that owned a factory bike in MotoGP, why would I bring a guy from a different series that hasn't proven him in this series and give him one of my premium spots? I give him one of my satellite spots I have him see how he adapts to that. And if he adapts well, then I give him a premium spot. I don't just bring him to one of the, there's only 4 premium spots in MotoGP, 4 real factory bikes in factory teams. You can still have a factory bike and be on a satellite team, but to get a factory bike on a factory team, like that's where you want to move in, you're going to be in World Superbike a long time waiting for that seat.
Yep.
Mark Marquez had one. You can add that one and as an exception.
Cal Crutchlow, 179 starts, 3 wins,
3
19
wins.
podiums, 14 poles, 4 poles, 4 fastest lap.
$17.9 million repair bill. All right, cool.
Let me say that I think with Top Rack, he's hurt. His ego was very hurt in how the testing went when he came to MotoGP. And I don't see Top Rack coming to MotoGP unless it's with BMW. Okay. We would say that would be happening in 2026, right? Or we would anticipate that happening in 20, and I hope it does. But imagine, notice what's happening in MotoGP right now. They're really pushing these older cats out and bringing these younger kids in. Like they're literally just bringing them up, and we don't care. And if you're aging out in Moto2, I don't know what's going to happen to the guys aging out in Moto2. It seems like they're never going to come up. They're going to keep bringing up these young, talented riders and hope that they can cut it out in MotoGP, because also MotoGP has changed. Rossi has voiced it so many times that the bike is the rider isn't actually riding the bike, that he believes that it's more about the electronics. So these kids are able to deal with this and cope with this skill set a lot more than the old school riders were developed in. So now with motorcycles having all this technology and all these rider aids, it's kind of harder for the aged out riders to figure this out and how to ride in this way. So yeah, I think that I think we're gonna be in for a big surprise when he comes back and Toprak comes to MotoGP. I think he will be aged out for what MotoGP will be in 2026. The only way he can come is on a BMW bike.
Yeah. Johan Zarco was the last rider that was over. He was 27 when he got to MotoGP. And he won 2 world titles in Moto2 before coming up. These riders
back
are like 23, back to back. And so these new after him riders are 22, 23, because Ika, Luca Ono, those guys came in, and Lowles and all these guys.
He was 27.
Yeah.
Damn, my man has looked 42 since he was 27.
I was about to say that. Johan Zarco and Jack Miller are the oldest young men in MotoGP. They're the oldest. Their mileage on racing is unlimited. Like these are replaced motors twice, but they're still kicking.
Yeah. Zarco always look like he's hot, like he's in the desert.
Sweaty.
What's interesting, and you bring up Jack Miller, and you think about Scott Redding. MotoGP was trying to do this when they were coming up, because they were 15 and 16 in MotoGP until they stuck those age limits in, right? So now you see these guys are closer to the 20s, early 20s coming in, but when they were trying to bring them up as teenagers, they put an age limit the other direction. So it's going to be, and they also don't have to pay a lot of money, because like they paid Rossi a lot of money, they paid Lorenzo a lot of money, they paid Marquez a lot of money, and some of these other guys. Not to say that they haven't deserved it of the money, because they're legends in the sport. But now you do find that sticking around, we're not going to see another Alicia Spargo sticking around that long in MotoGP and not having that many wins. Right, we're not going to see that anymore, or his brother, or any of these guys. Because I think or even Taka Nakagami. Granted, Taka Nakagami's situation is a little bit different, because that's more marketing. But we're not going to see guys, with that longevity. And do you think they're going to lose? And we're talking about World Superbike as well, but do you think they're going to lose some experience in not having? Because you look at, and I'll throw Formula One, when Lewis Hamilton raced the British Grand Prix, and he didn't come in to change because he had experience in riding in the rain, in driving in the rain. Do you think these guys are going to lose a little bit of experience? Or MotoGP is going to lose some experience where, the shelf life of riders are going to be like, I don't want to say like the NFL, but it might be 3 to 6 years.
I mean, yeah, you see the transition of the change in riders. I think there's just a select few riders that are still just too great to just get them out of there. I mean, I love this. Watch me some Jack Miller. It's just what he does for the sport as well. And I don't know. I think the shelf life will soon be like 3 to 6 years. Just the amount of racing they're doing now. They're doing more sprints and GPs. And I mean, every season, well, the last 2 seasons, they were projected to race 22 rounds. I think it's like that. A few races got canceled. So I think it's just more toll on the riders, and to compete at a high level, I think the shelf life will go down.
It'll be a shame. It'll be a shame if the shelf life goes down, because you need some years to build some notoriety.
True.
And if you start aging too many people out at the same time, you're going to start losing stars. Like, you need every sport needs stars. And if you only give people a very short window of time to try to prove themselves, you could be missing out on some great stars of the future. When Quartararo first came, and I like to use Fabio a lot because people kind of underrate him, but when he first came to MotoGP, he wasn't thought that he was going to be that big a thing. And then, he became a big thing. He became a champion. He became a multi-time champion. He became a constant competitor, kind of the face of the Yamaha brand. Whereas when Marc Marquez came in, he already came in with a lot of recognition. But how many Marc Marquezes do we get? How many Rossis do we get? Like right now, we have Pedro Acosta, who's really the only person I can say that came from a different class or lower class of racing into GP already with a pretty big fan base, because he had built that in the lower class. You're not going to get that too often. And if you don't give those new guys at least, 3 to 5, 6 years to really set themselves, you could be losing out on a big name. And you need big names in every sport. Like, you need somebody that can be like the marquee 1 or 2 guys. Hopefully they don't like each other, so you can create some competitive nature and some drama around it. Like, there's I hope it doesn't become what some series have become, where you just buy your way into the series, because then we're just going to get a bunch of rich kids out there racing, and they're not really going to be necessarily the best for the show. And they're going to keep some people that should be on those seats off those seats.
Well, this is why names like Bezecchi is going to be important to the sport. Riders like Jorge Martin are going to be super important to the sport, because I'm telling you, to me, like Lewis said earlier, and I've said this before on the show, Marc Marquez has 2 years max, and then a year to retire and say goodbye, like Rossi did. So he has this year to win and next year to figure it out, and then start planning where he's going to go to say goodbye, whether it's going back to Honda or what he's going to do. And Jack Miller, he's on overtime. He's been on overtime. And so is Zarco. So then, you got to start looking like, where's this talent going to come from? Where these 3, because they're pillars in MotoGP. They've been around 3 generations of riders. And competitively, it's not like they're just out here in last place consistently. But that's where World Superbike is important, and hopefully one day Moto America goes back to the Nicky Haydens, where we were sending talent to Europe, but Bulega has to make a name for himself and win on the big bike. He has to. I think Redding being back on a Ducati this year, his name is gonna ring bells and has experience in MotoGP. I think he's aged out to come back. We'd be dealing with another Jack Miller, but I really like Redding, especially on the Ducati. But you got a lot of young people in World Superbike that I think can make noise in MotoGP. Axel Bassani, I love him. I really like this rider a lot. And he's Italian. You know, this is another thing that Ducati especially looks for. They always want an Italian rider on their team, but I don't know how long that's gonna last.
Right.
Pecco might be one of the last.
I got one thing.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say for when I started watching MotoGP, there's one thing that I hated that KTM did was get a rider and then basically next year just cut him.
Yeah.
They never gave him a chance to develop. So that irritated me a lot, and then now pushed him out and they go to World Superbike or so forth. So I don't know if they're a part of that problem, but yeah.
Well, you know, I was gonna point out that, you know, Track Stars was saying, you know, riders coming from World Superbike to MotoGP, but the last 3-4 years it's been MotoGP riders going into World Superbike, and kind of, I mean, Top Rock is the only one that's kind of defended or fend off the MotoGP riders that got to World Superbike. But if Top Rock wasn't there, it was only Jonathan Ray. I mean, you saw Redding when he was on a Ducati, Bautista, Remy Gardner is coming into his own now. Ika is coming into their own. So there are a lot of guys from MotoGP that's kind of like, you know, kind of taking over, for lack of a better word. So if you're a rider in BSB or one of the European series, one of these other classes, how do you look to World Superbike as a door, or I mean super sport maybe, to get in when there's possibilities that we know riders are going to be coming out of MotoGP now because they got a shorter shelf life?
Get faster. It's motorcycle racing, man. If you want to win, you get faster. It doesn't matter who you're going to compete against. You know, you got to be the best in that particular class. If there's people that outclass you, then maybe you're not made for motorcycle racing. Or you get faster, train harder, you know, do what you got to do. And if you can't compete, then you just can't compete. Sometimes there's people more talented. I don't sing. I'm not a singer because I'm not trying to take Beyonce's check because I know I can't sing that good. So
yeah. But do you think, Louis, that also the bikes are obviously a big challenge, right? Actually, the bike you're riding in the sense of, even for Loris Bass to go from MotoGP to World Superbike to Moto America, back to World Superbike, back to Moto America, and still have this challenge of, how do I win on the bike? How do I be competitive on the bike? And vice versa, because when you see a talent of Top Rack to go to MotoGP and not be successful in the testing, really see how much he struggled. There's so many moving parts to making you successful on a motorcycle. I think do you think it's almost easier to go on cars because I mean, that's a big name, Hamilton, but he goes from team to team and figures it out, or people who come to Hamilton's team from other manufacturers and they seem competitive.
I mean, in World Superbike or in any Superbike or in any MotoGP class, it's a little bit different than other classes just because those bikes are built way different than your stock motorcycle. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to buy a World Superbike bike. You're going to build it.
Yeah.
The World Superbike series, if you look at the bikes that are competitive, I mean, there's really two manufacturers that are the most competitive, and then everybody else has their moments to shine. So right now, BMW and Ducati are at the front of the pack. Once in a while, Kawasaki shines. Once in a blue moon, Yamaha shines because they're kind of at the end of the life of that bike and they're just not investing to make it better. But when you get into like World Super Sport or you get into lower classes, now you're talking about a little bit less electronics, a little bit less stuff that you can do to the bike. Like, it starts to level the playing field. So if you're faster on competitive equipment or on similar equipment, then you're just faster. You're just better, whether it's on the tires or but anybody who's a competent, fast rider can go to any track on a competent bike and within the first few sessions be up to speed. Because think about it, the MotoGP guys, they show up at tracks they've never ridden before and they're setting all-time records. And they're going faster than anybody can imagine because fast is fast. You figure out how the tracks work out. You figure what's an entry corner, what's an exit corner, what's the best line through this corner, what's the best line through this corner for my bike, depending on the dynamics of my motorcycle, depending on the dynamics of the heat, like fast people know how to go fast, man. You know,
there is an elephant in the room in that though. And we see it in the NBA with former players and their kids coming into the league versus me just, growing up, playing on the basketball court. I'm learning all my skills on my own. You look at Rossi's machine that they have over there, the VR46 Academy. When you're a lone rider by yourself and it's just you and your dad, and he got a whole crew over there. When you say go fast, and you're like, dad's like, go faster.
I got a retort for you.
All right, go ahead.
Why is Bronny suck at basketball when his father's supposed to be the greatest basketball player? His father never took him outside to play basketball?
He does not suck.
He does not play well. That's why he's not in the NBA.
Oh, he's in the NBA. I mean, they're role players.
NBA-ish.
I will not say. He's scoring points.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, if there's natural talent and there's talent that's taught. Both are available, and depending on how you harness that talent and how you nurture that talent, that's how far you're going to get with that talent.
Right.
I've known a lot of racers, retired racers. I've known guys that'll be the first one to tell you, I was never the most talented rider, but I was the most consistent rider. I worked harder than anybody else that I raced against. I was up in the morning early. I took care of my exercises. I ate right. I did everything I had to do to be in the best shape, best condition to go race, while all my other competitors that were actually faster than me were out partying, we're out drinking, we're out hooking up, we're out doing everything else. And then when it came time to race, because that's my job, I was better at the job. Even though they were better at what they were doing, I was better at the job.
Right. But
TJ, agree?
I will go back and say again, I mean, I think today's a little different because it is more organized in every sport than 15 years ago. It's not to say it's helpful when you're organized. It's helpful when you have like the VR46 Academy. If you are hungry and you have if you have that Mamba mentality, and then you have all the support behind that, it's still going to be better than having the Mamba mentality and not having the support behind you. Both, you're going to be the best you can be, but having that more support is just going to, Kobe had mentioned that, kids that, like LeBron James and these guys who are hungry, who grew up in one parents' household, they're hungry. That's all. Every day they're waiting to get to the NBA. They're doing it out of necessity and surviving. When you have a kid that has a mother and father and got everything, and the kid's just doing it for love, when you get to the top, you don't relax. You're just doing it for love. So there's a difference between somebody who has to do it out of necessity, because some of them, when they get there, they don't know how to translate that into love and continue on. They kind of almost hit a wall, for lack of a better word, where when you're just doing it for love, it's always love.
I agree to that.
I think it's tough, right? Because the word that is attached to basketball is game. The word attached to baseball is game. To racing, this is not a game. You're literally risking your life every time you're on that motorcycle, every time you get in that car. So it's a complete different mentality that you gotta apply to this. Yes, it's fun. It's something that we love, but it can't be compared in the sense of what you're actually doing and how you're gonna train or prepare for it, because there's no preparing to. You can die out here. The only sport that you can maybe compare to racing is boxing, because you could die in the ring, and there's no word of attachment to boxing either, because your life's at risk. But let me tell you that it's not gonna get any less competitive. I think that obviously in every racing category or racing competition, whether it be here, Moto America, whether it's World Superbike, whether it's British Superbike, whether it's MotoGP or Australian Superbike, these people are out there and figuring out how to consistently win. And a perfect example, and I mentioned Loris Bass, is is riders like him who come from World Superbike here to America to compete and win, and somehow don't get the easy win. But they risk leaving home and coming here just to compete and win at the highest level of here in America. When they can stay, they could have stayed in
South Africa in
eh,
his case.
yeah, or in Europe and raced over there and gotten a nice paycheck. But I don't know what's gonna happen with Loris Bass next year here, but it's a discussion, right? What do you think, Lewis?
He's not here. His seat was he doesn't have a seat right now.
Yeah,
Cam Peterson took his seat.
Right, that's what he's asking.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to Loris? Is he, done riding? I don't think he's going to be back in World Superbike. So I got to assume it's European Series or BSB or fill-in.
Maybe European, maybe CSV, Italian series, Spanish series. I mean, there's a lot of other series out there. It's Motor America and BSB. I'm sure he'll find a ride somewhere, or he'll become a replacement rider throughout the year. I mean, he's a talented guy, so I don't think you have a problem. Here in the U.S., it's really hard because we have European guys that come here and do really, really well, and then for some reason they don't get invited back. Or they get invited back like for one weekend, or if somebody gets hurt. And I think it's a little unfair to them because they're going way out of their way to come to the U.S. to race on tracks they don't know. And, as much as we like to think we got nice tracks here, our tracks are, for the most part, shit. You go to most European tracks and it's like, wow, this is what a racetrack's supposed to look like. And then you go into, some of the tracks here in Jersey and it's like, oh, there's a wall, 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 there's a wall. Like I'm racing in a hallway, man. So that's why, that's why a lot of the European guys come here and complain when they go race. I mean, if they race Coda, they don't see it because that's a world-class track.
Right.
But they go to like Laguna Seca and they're like, oh, these facilities suck. Like, this and this and this. And they're like, you're like, Laguna Seca is great. Compare that to like, some of the other tracks in the US. That's, we wish all tracks could be like Laguna Seca. But I hope he lands on his feet. I mean, the series here in the US is kind of settled out, but there's still some spots available in different series in Europe.
Yeah.
Even riders like Chavi, another one that unfortunately these are riders that have been on Ducati, but Chavi rode on several manufacturers last season. And didn't land a seat, and I don't know what's in the works for him this season, but this is what I'm talking about. Like at the end of the day, it's tough when you put your life at risk. Even though we're here putting it at risk to earn money, but competitively for our company, and somehow not find a home to be stable in for a couple years.
Right. I will say this before we get out of here. It does seem like, not seem, usually when the European riders come to the US, their farewell tour already happened elsewhere, and they're coming over. So to keep in line with MotoGP and some of these classes, if we're going to get riders younger and get them in the series, it does kind of make sense not to have. I mean, I think some of the riders, when they come over and they do really well, it's exciting. But if they struggle to be top 10. And I'm pretty sure they may be asking more money than a U.S. rider to come into the sport. It not to say it's unfair, but I guess for the U.S. Motor America, it probably makes sense to keeping young, fresh blood in the series as well.
I mean, the youth is super important. Even here in Moto America, to see Alessandro, Kayla Yakov. You know what I'm saying? Lewis feels some type of way, but man, you know, Gus Rodillo, Yandel, Medina. Um, that even here we have to really start bringing our youth up to the bigger platforms. Lewis would say they still need time, but I think like for real, we got to give them the opportunity while they're young to ride the bigger bikes and get the exposure to the bigger platforms.
Yeah,
I think that's what MotoGP is doing right now.
I was rooting for Bobier when he was over there, but you know he had different options. So it does show you how hard it can be. I mean, it's a bigger stage over there compared to here. So definitely room for the younger crowd to hopefully eventually step foot over there.
Bobier's aged out too, no?
Oh yeah, a lot of these riders are aging out now.
I mean, he can keep racing here in the U.S. for quite a few years.
That's a fact.
He can keep making money here in the U.S. I mean, we have a couple of guys that are already in their 30s and they're still racing here and they're still making money, and it's good for them because you know they're recognizable names, people that you can stand behind, people you can cheer, and then we just have to wait for the next generation to come up and see what that next generation is going to look like. You know, I think Blake Davis is a kid that you know I've followed for a long time. And he's got a really nice career path going. He's won a couple of championships this year. He's, racing on an R9, and he's racing with on the same team as Matthew Schultz. So he'll be able to learn from like a veteran. I think that's what we need is we need to pair up young guys with veterans and help them kind of move up to that next step in their career because you do kind of need that mentor. You can get so far on your own talent, but if you go through the paddock, you have no idea how many people Josh Hayes actually walks around and helps throughout the weekend. And he doesn't race that much anymore. But if you go in the paddock, you'll see him sitting with Racer X, Racer Y. Hey, let me look at your data. Let me see what you did. What were you doing in this corner? Hey, I was watching you do that. Try this, try that. Just to try to, and that's what we need. We need guys like Josh Hayes and other riders that have been there and done it for a long time now to start mentoring some of these younger guys, because eventually these young guys and girls are going to take that place, and we need to continue to have a good product. And the only way to have a good product is to have that product well-trained, well-educated, not just on the bike, but also off the bike. Let's figure out how to train these boys and girls how to better market themselves, how to better promote themselves, how to go out there and find this extra sponsorship money and everything else. So don't just leave it on the team to do it all the time. Do it yourself. Figure out a way to bring some more money with you to the sport, because that's going to really make the difference if we're going to take that extra step. The VR46 team, they've got Monster. Why? Because Rossi got Monster. Why? Because he knew he needed money. All these teams, and all these riders are constantly looking for personal sponsorships because they need to get paid. They don't always get paid the best by the team they're riding with. Some of them don't get paid at all. They actually have to pay the team to ride. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
And we just, this is the next step in US racing. I know that we have like the Kramer series coming up, which is a great new step as well. It's a little bit of a pricey step. I looked at some of the numbers and it's not a cheap series for somebody to race in, but it's an opportunity to race on level equipment with other riders in your age range to kind of see who is the best in that group. And then hopefully from that group, some teams will pick up a few people, move them into Twins Cup or whatever the next level up is going to be. And then again, race with some guys, race some girls, cream to the top, and keep getting moved up the chain. But we got to help along the way. We can't just expect these young boys and girls to just go from stage to stage to stage. And, the veterans need to step up and help these kids get better as well.
I completely agree. And then on that note, anyone have any final words? If not, tell people how they can connect with you and the sponsors and all that beautiful stuff.
I got one question for you guys because there was a question we were going to go over and we didn't go over it. What's the most iconic moment in MotoGP history for you?
I'll answer mine last.
Answer yours last.
I know mine already.
What moment stands out like, wow, like this could only happen in motorcycle racing?
My track stars go first, so that's why.
Everybody's
Man,
running.
not to be
Think about it.
not to be like over dramatic, but we just witnessed it. We just witnessed it. And that is Jorge Martin on a non-factory team beating the factory team for a championship. I think this is gonna be one of the most iconic moments um in the history of MotoGP because it's that meaningful that it's never happened. It happened for the first time. And not only did he win, but he didn't get a factory seat or contract to move to the factory team. He's going away from it and going to Aprilia. And I think this will never, ever happen again because Ducati will never make that mistake. If Marc Marquez does not win the championship, it will hurt that much more. Um, but I think that was it. If it were not for this, to me, it would be moments because it was a whole season of moments. Was the first time Rossi loses to Jorge Lorenzo.
That's
To you? Okay.
First.
all right, I got it. I wouldn't say Rossi's farewell tour, but I said that before. But I say my most iconic will be Brad Binder winning the race in the rain and slicks. Just
That's a cool one.
when you start watching races, you know it's a competitive race when it's dry. Okay, yeah, it's wet, but when it comes to a flag to flag, like the scenario is just that much more entertaining. And then with that scenario where everyone pitting in, he just had the guts to stay out and still stayed up and won. I think that was very iconic. That was a good sight to see. That you can see that actually can happen.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
That is. Go ahead.
For me, it's gonna be something that I use. Like, so I have a love-hate relationship with soccer. Soccer is the most famous sport in the world, but the players are a bunch of bitches. Like, I hate their flopping. I hate that I go, oh, this guy touched me and I'm dead. Carry me off the field on a stretcher. Jorge Lorenzo breaking his collarbone, flying to Spain, getting it set, flying back, racing, and still finishing in 5th place, man. Like, I was like, this is why the motorcycle races are just built different, man. Like the pain that they're willing to go through, you know, every time they put on the helmet, they know that it could be the last time they put it on and they still go out there and perform at 100% and just, you know, it's just another day at the office, man. That's one of the most iconic things I ever seen just in general in sports.
Yeah, that was pretty dope. It wasn't Paul Pierce getting carried off and then coming back
From
out
the back.
From the back, dying.
For me, and it's more personal than anything. So it's 2017 Dutch TT. I was my first MotoGP race I went to watch in person, and I saw, and that's the last race Rossi won. But it's the first race he won in a long time, and I was there for that one. And I'll say this. So it was 2017 Dutch GP. 2018 was Mugello. He was on the podium. And 2019 I went to Austin and he was on the podium. So all those, the first one because it's a win. I always wanted to see Michael Jordan play in person. I never got to see him play. And so seeing Rossi race and win. That's something I'm going to hold for forever. As
a former Knicks fan, I can tell you I've seen Jordan play a lot of times, and most of the times it was dropping 40 on the Knicks, so it was impressive.
Yeah, I can imagine. Hey man, I want to thank everyone for coming on tonight. Let's tell people how they can reach you, guys, on social media, and sponsors that you want to tell people about, and all that fun stuff.
You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, 2 Wheels and Coffee. The number 2 Wheels and Coffee with a K. Sponsors J&G Performance to help fix your bike if you are down. Hideaway RV rentals. If you need some space at a track, you can get your RV delivered to you, and have a place to sleep. Woodcraft Technologies and Official Vortex. So they all help support my racing series.
For me, you can reach out to Starz and ask him any questions, and he'll reach out to me, and we'll have a long conversation about the question, and he'll get back to you. I'm Luis Ortega. I'm with Dainese. I've been with the company for almost a decade now, and we're just out here trying to provide the best products possible, protect riders, and continue to grow the sport.
I'm your boy, Trax. You could reach out to me on Instagram at Trax_stars, spelled the wrong way, TRAXSTARZ. You could always go to Dainese, any Dainese store, mention your boy Trax, or reach out to me, shoot me a DM, anything you guys need. You could reach out to Ducati New York, mention Trax there. They will always show you love. You can use Trax 23 on the warhorse.nyc website for your apparel. AEM Factory, use Trax at checkout, get a nice discount. And like I always say, stay up on tools, baby. And I hope you enjoyed this rivalry that I have today. You didn't really feel it that much because me and Luis was
agreeing too much.
The stars must have aligned somewhere. Like something.
Next time we'll argue a lot more.
Yes. I feel weird right now. I'm telling you, something's wrong.
No, man, it must be the power of the show bringing you guys on. I want to thank everyone for coming on, man. And we're gonna do this again real soon. Peace.
All right, take care.